So we're back. We've arrived at chapter 22 and following the call, living the Sermon on the Mount together. And here's the Bible passage to start us off with. It's from Matthew chapter 5, 39 through 42. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. To me, this just captures what love actually is and the power of love. And I think that's best embodied in Jesus on the cross, like we've discussed, and also the theme that comes up here in the contributors. So first, kind of what I got out of the first passage, Rich, I don't know about you. It does talk about active love and how, and what that means to engage in that fully and not hold back. But then it also kind of makes this comment how, this philosophy wouldn't work with tigers, but how, Jesus' commands to us is because we're not tigers and we're capable of that. So that was the first passage. I don't know what you got out of this chapter, but I think it's very straightforward in a way, but also one of the most difficult challenges and commands.
It's straightforward in a way, but it's something we have such a hard time keeping in our heads.
Yes.
And it's the reality that there are not good people and bad people. Each of us have capacity for evil and capacity for good. And the famous Solzhenitsyn quote, the line between good and evil runs, between in every human heart. And this is something that this commandment of Jesus, or this exhortation from Jesus to take an active role in helping another person rediscover in themselves what is of God. So when someone slaps you on one cheek, you don't passively accept that, but you do an act of showing them that you love them and there's something good in them, and that then confronts them. And I'm reminded of a story of an older sister in our community who's since passed away, who had a big impact on my life. Her name was Ilse von Kuller, and she was a refugee during the Second World War in East Pomerania, and as the Russian front was advancing, she and her daughter, her husband was in Russia fighting at the time, were captured with another group of people, were captured by Russian soldiers, and they said, "You are spies," and they lined them up against the wall, and they were about to be shot. And she had her daughter Martina, and she held her against her chest and looked at the officer, and she said she was given the grace to look at him with love and say, "Do what you have to do." And that caused the man to tell his men to lower their guns, and they left. And the man said, "It's because of your child that you were saved." And to me, this shows, and then she recounts many other instances of being in horrific situations. The brutalization by the Russian soldiers to particularly women was unparalleled. But she was able to see humanity in these other people, and I think this is the biggest lesson, and this is what Jesus points us to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's immediately what I was thinking when I read this chapter, is just also the movements in history where people united and encouraged each other to act out this show of love and compassion and humanity, like you said, like thinking of Gandhi, and then of course Martin Luther King, who's also quoted here, as well as definitely in our own history, the threads of history that's run through and influenced our Bruderhof community movement has been mostly surrounding this theme of just standing up against the evil and how powerful that is.
Yeah, and so for anyone who would accuse or say this is an excuse for like cowardice. It's not. It's, as we've discussed before, it's the greatest form of moral courage and self-mastery, to be able to overcome the impulse to violence, and to through accepting violence, or whether that be physical violence, or having things taken from you, or being spoken of unjustly. Something beautiful can happen if we have the courage to not resist, and instead actively do more.
Yeah. And it doesn't always revolve around violence necessarily. I mean, going the extra mile can happen in the mundane, in the everyday daily life, where you could begrudgingly not want to do something someone asks you to do, but then, finding the wherewithal and the passion to rise above that and to do more than you're asked. I mean, I think that is kind of what makes living out Christ's commands together work. Otherwise, it would be very dreary.
Oh, and it's contagious, right?
Yes.
If you're with people who are active and who are saying, what more can I do? It shames your own indolence or selfishness, and makes you want to do more as well. So it's all of a piece. So I mean, Bonhoeffer also speaks about how the division between the personal and the political, right? It's all very well and good for if you and I have an argument, if you turn the other cheek,
right?
If I, or whatever. But as Christians, we have an obligation to defend the faith and to stand up for stand up for God. Sometimes through use of force, whether that be violence or political. And and Bonhoeffer points this out. Jesus is no draftsman of political blueprints. He is the one who vanquished evil through suffering. And the cross is the only justification for the precept of nonviolence, for it alone can kindle a faith in the victory. Jesus really says nothing about this distinction between the person and the political, because it's almost impossible to separate the two.
Right.
So, again, we are called to live completely different as followers of Jesus, and that is going to be the best example. That's going to be the light that draws other people, and we should be proud of that and stick with it.
Yeah, and we should unite with others in that. And I think that is the force that can vanquish evil and stand up for Christ.
So a beautiful chapter and a challenge to actually live this out and to do it, but worth it. So looking forward to hearing your comments, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.